We're back, and there's an awful lot to sort out and talk with Tony Basilio about. Longtime Knoxville sports talk show host. He was up late Saturday night, and God only knows what those calls were like as they got into the wee hours of midnight and beyond. Tony, are you alive and well?
I'm alive. I don't know about well, but I just don't want Kelly or Coach or Billy to see me look like this, George. So I thought we would just do this one through the magic of the telephone today, man.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what I think, but those three, they want to have a better.
I was looking forward to seeing Tony's face today. I'll say that.
You wanted
I'm
bags under.
rather disheveled and dejected looking and exhausted. So those would be my three descriptors I would use for me right now.
Tony, none of us thought it would turn out the way it did. It really, other than the first touchdown drive, was pretty non-competitive. Give me some thoughts on what you think went on and what is going on.
What went on is this team lost a lot of talent from last year. And I think, in the offseason, I kept telling you guys that my sense of this team was that they were very much a work in progress with their offensive line, and that we wouldn't really know what they had till they got on the field with Florida. What Tennessee has right now is an okay Southeastern Conference football team. The good news is you're in a league where most teams are okay, which means you still have a bunch of games you can win. It also means you have a bunch of games you can lose. So, and then one other takeaway was that, Joe Milton is a great thrower of the football, but he's just not a quarterback. And that's, I don't mean that to sound ugly. I mean, he's just kind of a guy, sort of happy-go-lucky, and there's not a great sense of urgency with him. He'd do two or three things in a game that just make you go, wow. But then they had the issues they had the other night with getting to the line, getting the play called, getting in and out of things. They had to burn several timeouts. And Hendon Hooker, I'll give Watson Brown a lot of credit. And he told me several times, George, on your program and then on mine, he said, when this guy goes, you're going to realize how good this guy is, the level he's playing. And Joe Milton's just he's a college quarterback. He's not great. He's not terrible, but he's just not going to function at an ultra high level for them. So that compounding with the fact that their offensive line, look, I had found out after the game talking to some people because Ollie Lane had a rough night. He's a local Knoxville kid.
Right.
And they had him in there at center because Cooper Mays still not back from his injury. And who knows when he's going to get back from the injury? Who knows? But I didn't think he was going to play at Florida. Heupel kind of played the head coach game that these guys do where, look, as long as they don't make these guys turn in, injury reports like they do in the NFL, they're all going to fib a little and have a little fun and do whatever they're going to do, gamesmanship. But the truth is, Ollie Lane is a local guy who last year, at the end of the season, decided he was done. Tennessee went to him, talked him back into the boat, basically begged him back into the boat because they have been that poor thus far in Heupel's tenure of developing offensive linemen. And so a guy they thought was going to either help them at guard or as a depth piece ended up on the spot the other night, moving the ball around, getting caught for a couple holding penalties, that sort of thing. And he's drawn the ire of our fan base. And my message to the fans is, don't blame that kid. blame that head coach. That wasn't that kid's idea to be in the middle of that. He didn't do it. Now, he didn't perform the other night, but he easily could have just said, hey, you know what, guys? Have a great one. Have a good life. I've had a nice college career. I'm going to go start my post-college life. We're all going to go in professional in something other than football and going about his business. But for his troubles now, he's going to forever be linked to that game, which I think is very, very much a shame. So, and I wanted to kind of get that into the record this week, that he actually did Tennessee a solid coming back. But, George, there's not a player in Tennessee's two deep on their offensive line that hypo-recruited that they have any designs on being an offensive lineman. That is a major, major problem here, a major problem.
Tony, see if you can go with me on some of this. Would we both agree Hendon Hooker was about as close to perfect for them a year ago as you could ever get? True?
No question.
Okay.
He performed flawlessly. Yep.
He had an incredibly talented, deep array of wide receivers that they don't have right now. Agree?
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
And he had a better offensive line than what they have at the moment. Would you buy that?
Not even close.
Okay.
Not even comparable.
So, with that in mind, when I watched them Saturday, I saw a lot of run right up the middle and a lot of catch the ball out of the gun and quickly throw it to the wide receiver. It just looked like those were the two plays they ran over and over and over. How is he trying to mask the fact that his quarterback isn't Hooker? Now, in fairness, he's not the worst out there. He's not the best. There's certain things he can't do. Not very good at the touch ball. But there are also a lot of schools out there that don't even have that. How is he trying to mask all this, in your opinion?
Well, you said it. I mean, they're basically, and it's not just Milton. You know, Milton's got that thing where he just doesn't feel the game, which makes it very difficult. You know, and you either feel something or you don't. He just doesn't have that quality about him. You said it. I mean, he made three throws the other night that were incredible throws. I mean, you just kind of go, wow. Threw a ball to Thornton in the seam about
best throw
35 yards. Oh, man, he threw that thing right over his shoulder, right in his breadbasket. Just a beautiful throw. The touchdown throw that he had to Brew McCoy was a really pretty throw. The problem with Joe is that you can't get to the line and burn those timeouts. And then before the half, Tennessee had an opportunity to get a quick score. They were going to get the ball after, and they pride themselves on what they call the middle eight, which is the end of the half, the beginning of the third quarter.
The Belichick
They pride
deal.
themselves. Yeah, they pride themselves on winning that. They had a chance to tack on some points at the end of the half, ball up around midfield, and he let the play clock run down to like 1 second or so. And Kirk Herbstreit doing the game said, hey, he just burned 25 seconds there, you know, when you only had 50 seconds on the clock.
Right.
And so as a starter, you can't do that. What they've tried to do, George, to mask, well, two things have happened here that are really interesting. Their first two opponents basically dropped 7 and dared Tennessee to take the underneath stuff, which they were forced to because they didn't get long balls. They didn't. Tennessee the other night got behind. Then they started throwing the ball. Florida's defense, I think, got a little softer. You know, that kind of happens when you get a couple scores up. Billy Napier kind of took the air out of the ball on the offensive side, and essentially they just ran clock, which with these new clock rules creates a situation like the NFL has where you get 3 scores down a game, you almost have to be pinpoint perfect if you're going to come back on offense.
Or you're
we see
screwed.
that in the NFL, they're supposed to watch that game. Yeah, or you're in big trouble because I can just run the clock out on you. So they've basically, in these signature games, they've changed the tenor and the way the game feels and the way it's going to be played. So if you get that third score up, in other words, you're plus 14. If you're like they were the other night, you get up 18, 19 points. For all intents and purposes, you need a miracle now to win a football game, and particularly when you're on the road. The other thing that occurred, so what Tennessee's done is they've relied on their running game, which is top 25 in America. They have also thrown a lot of checks underneath, a lot of short stuff, and haven't really stretched the field the way we're used to seeing a Josh Hype football being played. Well, these defenses are taking the deep ball away.
Right.
They're dropping 7. And the other night, Florida, for the most part, rushed 4, and they were still getting home. So they didn't hardly blitz. They didn't feel the need to do those sorts of things because it was just that kind of night for Tennessee. And the Vols, even when they had their momentum the other night, they had the situation happen like when the head referee bumped into the football on the way back to his spot. I mean, you can't make that stuff up. And if I could take one encapsulation of what this damn Florida series down there has been for Tennessee, it would be that play. I would put that right there in a time capsule. Right. Because, George, I think there's a time, like you and I follow baseball. I think in baseball, there's a time for a manager to come out and explode on an umpiring crew every once in a while. If I was Heupel, once Florida got that ball back, I would have run out there and gotten a 15-yard penalty and said, "What are you people doing? You're gonna substitute." I would say to the referee, we didn't work on that play back in the summer. You kicking the ball away from us. So thanks for putting that on film for us. And then I would have said, but you also let them substitute 2 guys in, and we didn't substitute. So you just let them have an illegal substitution. And I think he should have gotten a 15-yard penalty. I've noticed that at times he's a little too passive over there with those officials. And the thing about referees is in any of these sports, if you don't fight for your right to party, you're not going to get that right. Rick Barnes is kind of a master of that. And Tony Vitello, the other guy we follow here, these guys don't take it from officials. And I think Josh at times is a little too nice, a little too passive.
You need to show him an Earl Weaver film.
No doubt.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask the Nico question later unless Kelly does it, but you have answered my stuff beautifully, which I knew you would. Kelly, say hello to Tony.
That's kind of where I was going, Tony. I mean, it's one game, and you hadn't won in, they have not won in Florida in so many years, and just looked like the other night they were trying to call something. I don't think Joe Milton played bad, but I like what you said because that's exactly right. As a quarterback, you've kind of got to have some energy about you, some pizzazz about you. Get up to the line of scrimmage. You got to make people mad sometimes. And I think Joe Milton's a great kid, but like as a quarterback, like you've got to have some juice about you sometimes. The guy can throw it through a wall, but it's one game. And I'm going to ask you this. Like I remember Coach Donnelly used to always say to us, he's like, I'm not going to lose with a senior. I'll put a freshman in there if I'm going to lose. And we're talking about one game. And I don't think the SEC is very good this year. So there's obviously plenty winnable games coming up. But what if this keeps going? I mean, if you're going to lose games, why would you not put the freshman in, the Nico kid in?
Kelly, I made people very angry on my post-game show, which really is not my style, because I like to please people on the air. But people are really angry the other night. Why didn't you put him in? You're not going to put a true freshman in that game, in that environment, behind that offensive line. You're just not.
Right. Yeah.
Unless you're mad at that kid or you never want to see him again. I mean, I can see why you might want to put him in a game. Now, going forward, Tennessee's got Texas San Antonio Saturday. A team they should handle. I think Nico will get some time this week. Then they have South Carolina at home, which is all of a sudden a dangerous game for the way Tennessee's playing, performing offensively. At some point, They're going to get Cooper Mays back. And I think at some point, my guess is, if I had to guess, the way this thing's going to play out, I think the Vols will drop a game or two between now and November, as much as I hate to say that. And when that happens, I think they'll be more apt to give Cooper May or to give Nico an opportunity. But I really, talking to people, I really get the sense that they love him. They think he's going to be a great player. They don't want to put him in there until the conditions are right, even if it means losing a game or two along the way. Because, these guys that have this special talent, they don't come around a bunch. They did, and they want to be really careful with him. They want to be really nurturing with him. That's what's going on here.
Well, that's a good answer. I can understand that. I was thrust into the spotlight, but I was 1AA, so I understand that. But let's go to the defense a little bit. This is kind of my last thing for you because you've given like everything that's great, but like defensively the other day, like, and you obviously know that was Billy Napier's plan the other day to kind of take the air out of the ball, not going to let them do what they did against them last year. And we talked about it yesterday. I talked about it with George. Like, they don't, when you lose four guys that go to the NFL, like the Hyatt kid, the Tillman kid, the two offensive linemen, that's pretty big on an offense that did all they did last year. But defensively, the other night, when the ETN kid rose through there, number 5, I don't remember his name, but the number 5 comes down. He didn't even try to make a tackle. Like, there were so many missed tackles in that game. And I've been really impressed about Tennessee's defense up until this point because I said that they've gotten faster. They're kind of like the offense. But the other night, it just didn't translate to what they were doing on the field. They were missing tackles. They were making mistakes. Just didn't look good on the defensive side of the ball.
They were making alignment mistakes. They were doing the zone man zone stuff and so on and so on, not communicating. The Kamal Hadden play you're talking about, I think, was a real signature play in the game because it really allowed Florida to kind of wrest control the game. And there were two guys that had a shot at him. One was the Herring kid and one was 5. Right. And look, the Herring kid's young, and that's a very good back there. It's a veteran player who, made a really nice move in the open field on Herring. But Kamal Hadden, you can't just bump into a guy. I mean, you got to get that guy on the ground, or at least attempt to get him on the ground. I mean, he tackled him like he was Deion Sanders or something when he used to play with the Cowboys. I mean, you got to get in there and, put your head down and try to make a play. The thing about Kamal Hadden is the same guy, which you got to love people like him in sports because you can't tell whether he's just gotten burned for a 40-yard pass over his head or he broke a play up on 3rd down. His reaction is going to be exactly the same. He's going to get up and celebrate. I'm surprised he didn't get up and celebrate on that one and go into the end zone and celebrate with Florida. He celebrates after every play. I mean, this guy is an absolute rock. This guy is like, you talk about a guy that Tennessee fans are tired of. That would be that guy. And rightfully so. At the end of the game, he was in the middle of a skirmish. He antagonized a big old offensive lineman from Florida, and he was backpedaling. The Florida lineman had his helmet on. Kamal Hadden doesn't even have a helmet on. And he's over there like going to fight with this big lineman, and he was retreating. He was in full retreat mode, like he was, trying to act like Switzerland over there. And I mean, guys like that on a football field, Kelly, have always amused me. They never quit talking. They never shut up. They never learn. And that's Kamal Hadden. So that's the guy that allowed that big play to happen.
Tony, your stuff, and I knew it'd be great. This is not a surprise, but man, your breakdown of this has been tremendous. So, in the Middle Tennessee area where most of our stuff probably comes from, if a person doesn't know how to hear more of this from you, how do they find you?
Well, thank you. My website is tclub.team, and we after games get on the air and go till I can't do it anymore. The other night we quit about 3:40 Eastern time, 3:30,
no.
3:40, and so that's why, George, I've bathed in this for like, I don't know, let's say 5, 8, 11. Probably 11 to 14 hours on air since the game.
Oh my!
So
Lord.
I better have a good breakdown of this, George, or there's something really wrong with me.
Either that or you're a masochist. Holy cow!
Well, there is that.
3:40 in the morning. Let me ask you this: any of the callers have a couple of sauces? Taste for the grape.
Hey George, after 1:30 Eastern, it is a prerequisite. If I could, I would put like a breathalyzer on our phone and make everybody blow into it. If we could come up with an apparatus like that, and to get on, you'd have to be inebriated. If you heard some of those callers, like at 1:00, it is like the twilight zone. The people that are there at 2 a.m., it is literally like being in the twilight zone. But the other night, I finally said, look, everybody, I have had enough.
I'm going to bed.
I love you. I'm for you, not against you, but I am going to sleep. And we still had all of our calls, all of our lines were jammed.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it anymore.
Okay.
We had Scott on Facebook chime in. He said that you took it much easier on Kelly than you did about the callers asking about Nico going into the game. So Kelly, he took it easy on you.
Yeah, by now I've gotten. That's right. By now, I've kind of slowed my roll here. That's the other thing about those games. You do a post-game show, and your adrenaline is really pumping.
Oh, yeah.
The game just got played, and everybody's at everybody's throats. And I had a guy tell me, he sent me an email, and he said, it's a really bad look for you to punch down on a couple of your callers. Punching down, are you, Tony? Punching. I've never even heard that saying. I was like, what does punch down mean? I asked my wife, what does punch down? She's like, well, that's like when you pick on someone. I go, what? What? So we're like all turning on each other, and everybody's mad at each other. And so if that's your kind of thing, check us out at tclub.team. Actually, we also have a good time celebrating the wins as well. But since I'm an equal opportunity torturer of myself, we do that during basketball and then even some baseball games as well.
You are the best, Tony. Thank you for doing this.
I'm something. You're the man. You guys have a great day.
Hey, talk to you soon.